Good. I'm going to get up and start talking. All right?
As long as you center yourself.
Make sure it says record.
It's recording.
Okay, all you good folks? I don't have any free beer for you tonight, I'm sorry to say. But I have the ability to let you listen to a guy who's going to give you the ability to someday do so well in life you can buy your own damn brewery. So listen to what you're going to hear. I first of all must make a little special introduction. Joel Daly committed to come here and speak for me some time ago, not realizing that today was his daddy's birthday. So he's missing celebrating his daddy's birthday with his daddy down in San Diego. So instead, his daddy came, and I'd like him to stand up. We'll have no more than 30 seconds of happy birthday to you, okay? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Johnny. Happy birthday to you. That's enough. Okay, yeah. Let me tell you something. Someday when you guys are parents, you'll understand the pride of a father to be able to hear and see his son tonight. And that's neat stuff. So we're delighted he's here. Joel Daly graduated from LMU's MBA program in 1993, 7 years ago. This is a guy that he was in the Air Force when he came into my class. And he was doing extremely well. I want you to understand, this man would have been a general. He was named the, I don't know what, Officer of the Year in the Western Tibetan province or something like that. But he won this award as Financial Officer of the Year in the Air Force. He had a career that was skyrocketing. But he had, as he said to me at the time, a fire in his belly to go do something himself, to go create a business himself, to go find out if he could make it. And he had this agony about should he quit the safety of the Air Force and go do what he felt he had to do. And he had the guts to do it. And I want you to pay attention to this guy today. He's no different than you. He doesn't have any different genes than you. I doubt that he's even smarter than you. Probably dumber than you. I don't know. So, it doesn't matter. What matters is he has the mind, the soul, and the heart to go do his own thing. And any one of you can do it. I've said this time after time after time in these presentations. You must leave here, every one of you guys, young or old, must leave here saying, I can do that. I can do it. Hell, if he did it, I can do it, right? This guy can do it. He did it. He did it extremely well. I'll summarize very quickly. He started a business straight out of school, some damn computer stuff, bridging something or other. I don't know what it is. I don't know any of that stuff. He did. And 3 years out of school, he sold the business and became very, very successful financially. He then took a sabbatical, and he hadn't told me yet how long a sabbatical was. He heard that. That's an academic term. We academic guys, you know, every 6 years we get tired. So we take a semester off and go loaf at the beach and everything. If you only knew, I just applied and sent it to the dean, and we've got to do all this crazy research stuff and all sorts of hard work. But he took some time off to think about where he was going with his life. He started a new business now. Got $230 million in venture capital. You know what that's like? You know, that's a hell of a chunk of money. He now has 13 offices, 450 employees. The manager of his Irvine office is also here. Can you stand up? Bill is a very smart man, because we found out tonight when he showed up here, his wife is an MBA student here, so that's not bad. That's pretty good. So I give you Joel Daly with extreme pride. Listen to this man. He's got heart, soul, and mind. Okay.
Can you hear me with the mic here? Yeah. Very good. Well, I thank everybody for coming out this evening. It's really neat to be back here. When I was here, I just absolutely can't get over this joint in terms of 7 years ago seemed like a very long time, and the way that this building wasn't even here, and the new building wasn't here, and so it's just really beautiful. At the time I was here, I was in the Air Force, and I was doing my MBA at night. And it was a great experience, although it was a little frustrating because you always had to do something, especially taking night classes, something had to give, whether it was work or the MBA class, and it was a pretty tough struggle. And I got frustrated in the beginning, but I have to admit, in terms of one of the greatest impact on my life really was getting involved in the MBA program. I made a decision to get out of the Air Force, and really it was a question of what I was going to do next. My father had a ski shop. The entrepreneurial flair really came from my father, who's here tonight. And of all the boys, they always say that they cut off his pinky and grew Joel. We're both characters. We're both folks that drive our wives crazy. But we have very similar personalities in terms of being entrepreneurs. And my father asked me whether or not I wanted to come back and run Alpenhaus, which was a ski shop in upstate New York. And I kind of struggled with it, and really it was the experience of the MBA program. And also there's another special person here, Maureen Ford. And I got involved in the Southern California Entrepreneur Academy. And through the experience of the MBA program and through the experience of the Entrepreneur Academy, I really got that fire in my belly. And in making the decision on whether or not to go start my own thing or go over and take over my father's business, I said, shoot, he did it. I've got to take the chance. I've got to go and see if I can do this myself. So back in May of 1993, after finishing up the Entrepreneur Academy, after getting mostly done with my MBA program, a buddy of mine, Paul Barbarian, we were both assigned a side job in the Air Force. And that side job was basically video conferencing. The way that the government works is basically, in order to fund a satellite program, you want to have as many different subcontractors in as many different states as possible so nobody votes down that program. So our travel budget was really outrageous. You know, we had a whole bunch of different subcontractors. So to save money, I was a bean counter. That was my job. I was a financial analyst, and never turned down those side jobs because basically I was asked by the general to hook up a video conferencing unit for all the different offices. And I really got jazzed in that technology. And so when I had to make the decision of what we were going to do, Paul Barbarian and myself basically said, hey, why don't we get out and start a business that doesn't sell to the government, because the government doesn't pay until like 2 years later, and you go out of business pretty quick. Why don't we get out and start a business that basically we will purchase a multi-point bridge, which is basically a conferencing bridge. And what it does is it allows for video party calls. And we selected this because we knew the technology. But you want to know the real reason why we selected it? Because it was the only part of video conferencing that we could afford. That's it. And I remember putting together, we were trying to think, there was only two of us. What could two dudes do in terms of getting involved in the video conferencing industry? Well, it was this video party call, or this video bridging concept. So we went through and we put together a business plan. And I have to tell you the truth, it was a pretty intense process, because instead of presenting to VCs, we had to present to our families. Okay? And it was a pretty, because at that time, and it's the same thing now, at that point in time, I weighed probably around 140 pounds with rocks in my pocket, and I looked like I was 12. And so we got the business plans, and we went to, Paul's family was here in Pasadena, my folks were out in New York, and I remember flying back home to convince my father, hey, can I borrow some dough for this crazy idea? And I remember we put all this time into the freaking business plan, and he didn't even look at it, and neither did Paul's father. All of their conversation was, who's the partner, and how to, all attributes in terms of your partnership. What was this person's background? How are you going to work together? That was all the conversations. I kind of laughed. Matter of fact, it's kind of funny now because I went through the old VC process, and you learn one of the biggest elements of raising VC money is the management team, the background and the values of the people. And so we went through our first VCs to start this company. Matter of fact, over on Rosecrans, which is down in El Segundo. We got this little office. It was probably around 900 square feet. And I'll never forget, the neat thing with video conferencing is that they take, you basically sat in a chair and you greet people when they come in from Hong Kong, London, or New York. And you basically tell them who's in the conference and then cut off. Now, when we started out, there was only 2 of us and it was 24/7. So many times I'd have a tie on with pajamas underneath. And so I had to remember not to stand up. But very shortly into getting going, we had a really interesting experience. We got our first customer, which is the most important. The biggest hurdle was to get the money from the family and to get that up and going. I remember to start the business, it was like $150,000. That's all the money that we could get from our families. And the bridge itself cost $100,000. We shipped it to Paul's house when he lived in Hermosa. We put it on the back of my truck. And I stood in the back of the truck holding that thing, because if that thing fell, that went all the money. We would have been over with. And I remember bringing it over. We finally hooked it up. Matter of fact, during that experience of hooking it up, I hooked it up wrong. And we had some trials and tribulations of hooking the equipment up wrong. But for the first conference that we went to, we had this little cheesy display. We went to Kinko's and made our banners and all this other stuff and made brochures and handed them out. And there was an intern from JP Morgan, which was a pretty big bank at that time and still is. And they were the largest video conferencing users in the world. The intern picked up our information, and when they went back to the office, she signed up all of JP Morgan's sites onto our conferencing service. So I'll never forget, our first customer came in, these faxes came in, it was JP Morgan, and there's 60 sites around the world. And part of the process of hooking these sites up is to test them out. We had to validate what type of software they had and all this jazz. So I remember working 2 days straight, calling Hong Kong, London, saying, "This is Joel Daly from Link BTC. We are your new video conferencing bridging company." And then finally I got a phone call from New York, and it was the guy that runs the JP Morgan video conferencing services. And he said, "Time out. Link BTC, who the hell are you? This is ridiculous. I don't know who the heck you are." And so he says, "I want to meet you tomorrow, and I'm going to conference in New York and London." And so we got all ready. We were all nervous because we really wanted this account. It would be great to get a marquee customer. And I'll never forget, the gentleman called in from New York, and when London called, we got an error 56. When we installed the equipment, I basically crossed the cables. I hooked the cables up wrong, and we got the same error. Paul, my partner, runs in, says, "Error 56. I go, we need to contact London and tell them that their cables are crossed. They thought we were freaking geniuses. They switched all of they switched the majority of their sites over to our service. And that's how we first got into it. And once we got JP Morgan and got that name and started to deliver good service for them, it truly was the start. The interesting thing, though, really, and I think it's kind of the big lesson learned in terms of working hard and being a little bit lucky. In terms of starting out with the idea, both Paul and I had a background as just a side little job in the Air Force of getting into that video conferencing stuff. And it was great that we could take that concept or that idea and build on it. Matter of fact, the very interesting thing was trying to figure out something that we could do, that we could afford. We didn't come up with a plan that was totally outrageous that we were going to take over the world. We had a very simple idea of having a conferencing service and competing against the larger players out there, because we had the hunger and the desire to do it better than them. Matter of fact, we got into it because I got yelled at so much. We used to have a lot of meetings with AT&T and Sprint, and they used to fail. And then sooner or later you kind of figured out why they were failing. It's because they weren't testing the sites and they had the wrong software versions mixing together. So basically our whole premise was to test out, log what software version that they had, and then built in to automatically check whenever meetings were scheduled that there were no conflicts. That was our only little claim to fame. Well, we improved the failure rate from like 50% down to 15%. And so it was just a simple problem that had to be solved. Matter of fact, I remember taking Fred's class, and there was an article that I read. And this is when I really knew I had to become an entrepreneur. The essence of the article was basically comparing a comedian to an entrepreneur. And if you think about it, what does a comedian do, like Seinfeld or any of these folks? They basically pick common problems that we all experience, and they make fun of them. Entrepreneur does the same damn thing, but packages them and sells them. And so right then, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur because I'm a wise ass. And so my destiny was kind of sealed then. And so basically what happened is, there was another great concept in terms of lessons learned. When you first start out, you've got to pick something that is achievable. I'd say probably a year, actually last year, was the land of funny money. Okay? And what I mean by that is that there was so much venture capital out there, and there were so many bloated internet stocks that money was floating everywhere. Now the nice thing is that there's good filters now because the market has corrected itself, and it's corrected itself for a good reason. But in the beginning, without having a background or a history, you've got to pick something that you can start out yourself that you can then build on. Because if you look at this chart right here, it tells you that the majority of the sources of funds when you do your first one is going to come from your family or come from yourself. And that's the reality. Matter of fact, you know, when Fred introduced me, how does a joker like myself get $230 million investment in? It's amazing the fact that I had a track record in a previous business that was a much smaller scale than what I'm doing right now. But the mere fact that I had a track record and I could build on that track record was absolutely critical. So, some funny stories in terms of that business. Right off the bat, my partner and I, Paul, knew that we were very much the same, kind of absent-minded professors. I lose stuff, Bill knows. Every time I come to visit Bill, I'll leave my computer or my phone or something. They got to ship it back to me, back in Colorado. But Paul is very similar in terms of absent-minded professor also. And so there were two guys that we worked with, Jim Legiel and Art Daly, who are probably the two most anal folks I have ever met in my life. But we knew our weaknesses, and we got them as partners. And it was probably the best thing we have ever done. And so there were 4 Academy guys that really launched this video conferencing business. And we grew out of our LA office. And matter of fact, it was time to move. And so what we did is we went to Boulder, because we all went to school out in Colorado. And I was the only guy that wasn't married, and my partners were getting nervous on me. And so they figured I'd find a wife in Boulder. And that's really, everybody asked me the technical reasons, like NCAR's there, which was one of the hubs of the internet. No, Joel just needed to find a wife. So that's really the technical reason why we moved to Boulder. We ended up moving the headquarters to Boulder, and shortly thereafter, we were very fortunate. We were approached by several telecom companies, and we were in the right place. We picked the right niche at the right time. And a lot of these telecom companies wanted to fill their service offering, and video conferencing was a service offering they wanted to fill. And so we got approached by 4 of these folks. Matter of fact, one of these folks that approached us flew us up to Seattle to go golfing. And as an entrepreneur, if you're a really good golfer, you're not working hard enough. That's at least my excuse, because I suck. Matter of fact, I was so bad, he told me to pick up my ball on 1 hole. And I promised my partner I would learn how to swing a golf ball. Because Fred asked me what I did in my sabbatical. I took 4 months off after we sold the company and took lessons every day. But you know what? I still suck. So that's why I started the second business. No, just easy. So basically, we got approached by these folks, and we were in the right place at the right time. Matter of fact, a lot of folks came to us and offered us a chunk of change up front for the company but the majority of the value of the company, we actually sold it for around $15.5 million, and it was privately held at the time. What they wanted to do was put a small portion of cash up front and then have very aggressive milestones at the back end. And so we went through this whole process of if we grew it ourselves, and what would it take from a VC funding standpoint, and if we went public, how many years would it take, and all this other jazz. And we looked at each other and we basically said, screw it, we got nothing else to do, let's keep it. So we went back, and this was Frontier Communications at the time, and we thought the way we'd get rid of them was by doubling the offer and switching the back end to the front end. And I'll never forget, I got sworn, the guy looked at me, because I looked like I was 12 at that time. He told me to get the heck out of his office, but he didn't use that type of language. So we just all picked up and went back to work. Around 2 hours later, they said, okay. So once you made your word that you were going to sell, that's really how we ended up selling the company. But I think it was good timing, because the interesting thing is that there was 4 partners in that business. And a partnership really is like a marriage. And so nothing bad happened in terms of the partnership, but I think it was good timing for us to move on. Matter of fact, 2 of our partners, Paul and Jim, went right away and opened up another company. They're a public company called Evoke now. Art and I took a little sabbatical. Art went over to Eastern Europe, and at that point in time, my wife was pregnant with twins. So we toured around the U.S., and I tried to learn how to golf a little bit, and we just hung out. But as I said, I was driving my wife crazy, and then finally Art and I got back together after he got back from Europe, and we said, time to do it again. We're too freaking young. Plus I suck at golf, and I'm driving my wife crazy, so I've got to do something. So what we did is we took the same concept. We said, hey, let's repeat our success. We were pretty fortunate in our last business. We don't want to go out and invent something that we had no background on. We knew we wanted to do something in telecommunications, because video conferencing, you know, all our background was on networking and telecommunications. And so we remembered the pain of opening up multiple offices. Matter of fact, we opened up around 5 offices. And a big portion of these video call centers were data centers. We had to get all the different network providers in, and it took us freaking 8 months. And we did, the only money that we ever raised besides our family money was an SBA loan of around $500,000. So it was really bootstrapped. We took all the profitability and shoved it back in. So each time we built these data centers, I have to tell you the truth, we had to do it half-assed. We didn't have any money. And so after selling and going through that experience, we basically said, hey, there's a whole bunch of companies like our old company. What do they need? What type of solutions do they need? And oh, by the way, the internet was happening at the same time. And so we came up with a concept of co-location, basically providing internet data centers in which we would go out and build these big facilities, 20,000 square foot facilities. And at that time, it was only 4,000. I'll get back to that one, because once again, that's all the money we could afford. But anyways, we built these big data centers where people bring in their application, and we host their application. We make sure that it's up and running 24/7. Now the end users are hitting that application via the internet. So we have to have multiple carriers, multiple internet carriers. We do what's called a managed BGP internet offering, and we manage that for the customers. So if any one carrier goes down, the IP addresses route over to another carrier. We also then pick peripheral services like firewalls and all this other jazz. Basically technologies that either enhance or complete that customer's application. Matter of fact, one of our customers, probably everybody knows, is MapQuest. If you ever gone and looked at directions on the internet, and when you go in, you put your little address, all of that stuff is traveling over the internet, going through our firewall services, hitting MapQuest servers, tapping back into some of the local offices of MapQuest through private line connections, and feeding back information to you. And so that's an example of a customer that we host within our facility. And so that really was the second business that we got in, but it was built and based off the fact of a problem that we experienced before. See, I love selling, and I love to sell stuff that I would buy. So the neat thing about starting up your own business, whatever the hell you do, is make sure that you would buy it. Because it's going to be awfully tough for you to sell it if you wouldn't even buy it. And so this was a common problem. This was something that we needed. Now, what we did is we started in September of 1997. We said, hey, what we're going to do is, we were pretty fortunate in our last business. We're going to take our own money and get our own data center and get that first one down. And we're going to show some blood money. Because I'm going to tell you a little bit about the VC funding and all that other jazz. Because basically, that's our personality. We don't like to sell stuff that's not real. So we found a data center down in Denver. And it was an existing data center. And we put in around $1.2 million of our own money. And it was 4,000 square feet. Everybody always asks us why it was 4,000. That's all the money we could freaking afford. That's why it was 4,000. And so what we did is we found that one data center to offer this service. And we worked for around almost 2 years or so getting the templates and the processes and the economic model down. Matter of fact, once we got it built and finally up and running, it was around 9 months until we broke even, which was a really neat milestone for us because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to prove profitability with this concept. So in March of 1999, we went out after we broke even, and we entered into the venture capital realm. And it was a really neat experience. But I think we were pretty fortunate. We were fortunate because right when we were going to sell our last company, we met venture capitalists from First Union Capital Partners that wanted to invest in us. And we said, no, sorry, too late. But you know what these folks did? For around 3 years, every time they came to Denver, they'd take Art and Joel out golfing, or they'd take us and they'd send us business plans that they were thinking about investing to get our opinion. So basically, right after we broke even, we were approached by the original investors. The big company in this industry is a company called Exodus. And their investors came to us. They called us up one day and they said, hey, we like what you're doing. You're doing the same thing that Exodus is doing, but you're doing it in these smaller tiered cities. We want to come out and meet you. And it was actually Fleet Equity. So the first thing we did, we said, we don't know these people. So we called our buddies at First Union and they said, time out. They flew out on a plane, and around 2 weeks later, they gave us around $10 million to take this template. But a large portion of it, once again, was based off of our past track record and the fact that we had some experience in this business. The other thing that they loved, absolutely loved, is the fact that we put our own money in the second time around. And so it showed that we're dedicated towards making this happen. So in March of it was actually April that we closed our first Series A funding round. And basically what we could do is take this template that we built in Denver and start rolling it across the country. And so we started in Raleigh and Minneapolis and San Diego was the first 3 sites that we started to build. And at that time the markets were very good. And it came November of 1999 that we raised $62 million. And to continue the expansion across the U.S. And the market was going really great again. And back in February of this past year, we filed our S1. And I'll never forget, we got together, it's been a great experience. And the only thing is I probably could have picked 1929 as a better year to take a company public. Right? And so, matter of fact, we're still filed today with our S1. We're waiting for the old markets to come back. But I remember that basically got ready for the road show. They take you in and they take you to grooming school. They video you, matter of fact, just like this. And the big thing, and matter of fact, I would fail if I was at the grooming school right now because I'm moving around too much and I've got too many points on my PowerPoint charts there. I'm not concise enough. But that was a really neat experience. And matter of fact, we were going to fly over to London. What they do is they fly into London to give your first roadshow pitch. That's so that if you screw up, they can bring you back to the U.S. and the U.S. folks are the ones that are going to really buy all the stuff so you can fix your speech. And so we were getting ready to go to London. That was the big day. That was like minus 580. So what we did is our business was still going really well. And so what we did is we just closed a $156 million round. of extra capital. And we took a little dilution hit, but with the markets not being that good, what we wanted to do was get a big chunk of change to ride out the storm, and so we could focus on the execution of the plan. And that's exactly what we've been doing. Right now we've got around 13 data centers, as Fred has been saying, and we're going to have around 17 by the end of this year. It's been a really interesting experience. The first challenge that we had was to prove ourselves in Denver. We broke even and we did that. The second challenge really was to execute the rollout, okay? And really what that meant was, yeah, you have a template in Denver, but to roll out these data centers is a very difficult thing because of the power, the HVAC, and the network, and all the technologies, everything coming together. We told them we were going to do 13. We already got 13 done. Going to come up with 17. The next big thing was, can you sell outside of Denver? We've got 2 data centers right now that are going to break even by the end of this year. So we're going outside of Denver. We've got 2, we actually got 3 data centers in Denver. 2 of them are profitable. So the nice thing is I'm going to have 2 markets, Minneapolis and Raleigh, by the end of this year that are going to be profitable. The next major challenge that we have is, can you compete with the big boys, the Irvines, the Atlantas, the Austins, and the Dallas? And so that's the stage that we're in right now. As a matter of fact, Bill's major challenge in life. And one thing I know is bring it on. We're up for the challenge. And so we're pretty excited about that. The next milestones that we're going to face really is going to be, can you take this template to Europe? As a matter of fact, the last thing that I did after we sold the video conferencing company, I stayed on board and we opened up a London facility. That was the big thing that my partner and I wanted to do, was to get that experience under our belt. And so we are building a facility right now in Dublin that's going to be open in January. But we're treating it just like Denver, that first facility. Because you can't have a concept of bringing your exact business plan over to Europe. You will fail. So what we're doing is we're treating Dublin like our first facility, in which we need to Europeanize our processes, our architecture, our sales, and our products. And that's what we're doing. And so it's been a pretty neat ride in terms of the experiences that we've had. There's a few points that I want to kind of talk about in terms of kind of the lessons learned and some of the stuff that if you start your business, this is the stuff that you need to think about. In terms of the evolution of the company, it's really neat in terms of, I talked about the idea. In terms of creating the big idea, create it from a problem that you have experienced. To be the best expert, you should be a customer. And so don't go out and invent something that you've never experienced before. Pick a problem or something that gets you hot. Then come up with a solution, and it'll be a good idea for you. The very interesting thing that I'd love to talk about is the difference between our first business and our second business. It took us around 2 months to get our business plan together before we went and visited our parents. You want to know why? Because we had to travel out to all the competitors. We had to go to the vendors, had to physically fly there and meet people. In this last business, it took us around a week once we narrowed it down to what concept we wanted to do. You want to know why? The internet. Plain and simple. And so, you know, if you think about you have to have an idea that's absolutely different, I think it's baloney now. Because there's so much information out there. You know the old concept of barriers to entry? That no longer exists. There's a bunch of money, there's a bunch of technology. If you think you have an idea that you're the sole person that has that idea, that's no longer true. Either somebody's thought about it before you, or somebody's going to be right behind your heels thinking about it. So the new concept is barriers to compete or barriers to scale. How do you execute faster than the person who's has the same amount of information as you? And so that's been a really neat experience in terms of executing this second time around. In terms of startup, the major key in life, it was like the first business with the JP Morgan story and the second business. Getting the first customer is absolutely crucial. And matter of fact, it's the same in each of the markets. Bill's going through the same thing in terms of getting the first set of customers Getting that local brand recognition in that area is key. But your best salespeople are customers. That's why you got to get them. In terms of growth, that's been really the neat thing in terms of scaling. You know, this business is a lot bigger than the last business that we've experienced. So this time you really got to have your stuff together. You've got to think about automation. You've got to think about defining your processes. I always talk about documentation and how documentation stinks. Well, if you can't write it down on paper, you'll never automate it because you won't define what your business rules are. And if you don't do that, you're not going to scale. And so that's been another big lesson learned in terms of growing this business. And the other thing too now is we're not at the maturity stage, but there is so much information. Things are moving a lot faster than they have in the past. And you've got to keep on top of it because there is a lot of money and there's a lot of technology. The interesting thing that hasn't changed though, which is a big thing that we think about and we focus on, is that you know what the biggest lack of resource that's out there right now? It's people. It's people. There's more venture capital than ever in the history of the world. There's more technologies. You have the internet. The access to information is outrageous. The largest problem out there is trained and qualified people in terms of delivering these technology services. So we have to set up a big training program. We've got a huge emphasis in terms of the people. And I'll talk about that in a little bit here when I go over the culture stuff. This is really neat in terms of, this is your old traditional, this is a little MBA stuff, but I can't emphasize how true it is. This is the classic, evolution of going from an entrepreneur organization to a professional organization to a bureaucratic to a declining. And an entrepreneur organization, you've got several things going for you that are going around that circle. And that thing that's going for you is hope. Okay? The dream that we're going to be the next Cisco. I convinced Mr. Page to drag his poor wife from Denver, get a cut in his salary, stop her freaking MBA program out in DU, but now she's in a better MBA program, so that's a win. Yeah. Right? To come out for the dream. To go and do the mission of competing against, the large competitors and making it happen. And so you've got a lot of positive things going for you. And if you look at the axis, you've got effectiveness versus efficiency. And it's so true. Right now, we are winning because we're very effective. But you know what? We ain't got all of our processes defined. We ain't got all of our stuff automated. We ain't got everything together. We get invoicing done because people stay up to around 2:30 in the morning to get it done. Because everything is not 100%. And so what we're doing is we're making the big jump between an entrepreneur organization and a professional organization. You want to know why? Because in an entrepreneur organization, you are effective because of brute strength and heart, but you're not efficient. So what happens is you get sick of doing the same thing over and over again. Matter of fact, the interesting thing in this business is I got a family. I don't want to sleep under my desk anymore. Right? I want to get stuff done smarter and faster. And so you think about you're doing the big jump between an entrepreneur organization and a professional organization. And that's what we're going through right now. We're trying to set up a lot of our processes and a lot of our stuff to take that jump over. The interesting thing in terms of what you got to watch out for as you grow bigger is becoming a bureaucratic organization. The personal challenge people ask us, hey, you're going to go and do this one real quick and then sell it? You did that before. Well, we were pretty fortunate in our last business. And the reason why we're doing this business is because of the challenge. Both my partner and myself, are competitive SOBs. And we are really jazzed in terms of the opportunity that faces us. Because we only had a few offices the last time. One of the neatest things that we had was a really cool culture. A really neat culture, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But the challenge is to have 13 offices across the country, 17 by the end of this year, and even a global company, and have that same type of culture. Because it's going to be painful, there's going to be bumps in the road. And for us to achieve that is a really big personal goal. We've got a few strategies that I'll talk about, but it's primarily decentralizing, having entrepreneurial centers at each of the locations. It's one of the concepts. But the big thing is to stay away from the bureaucratic baloney and to make sure that you don't get involved in any of the groupism stuff. Now the last thing is you want to stay away from the declining where everybody's fighting for their jobs because they're canning everybody. But the big thing that I wanted to talk about was the need to automate your processes so you become a professional company. The other thing is a business plan. You know how you do these business plans at your MBA class? And you say, oh God, I gotta freaking write this stuff. This sucks, right? You wanna know what? You got to do it. You know what I'm doing on the way home? And I started on the way out? It's budgeting season, right? It's October, I gotta plan for next year. Guess what I gotta do? A freaking business plan, right? You're gonna go raise money and you don't have a business plan? You know what they're gonna tell you? Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here unless you're freaking Bill Gates, right? So, you know, you're going through this pain of a business plan, and I went through it. Let me tell you right now, if you're going to go do your own business, it will not end. Somehow learn how to enjoy writing a business plan because there's a purpose behind it, okay? You know, and it's the biggies. What is the market opportunity? You want to make sure that you have growth in a market opportunity. Product, you want to have paying customers. Management, demonstrate the success of the management team. Here's another thing. Don't be afraid to partner. Be very, I think, you know, it's worked for me, and there's some folks out there that are different, that like to run the whole show. But I think in today's age, where things are moving so much faster, it comes to how you structure your team. And to figure out what your weaknesses are and get folks that bring up your weaknesses with their strengths. I think that's absolutely critical. You want to know the other thing is? You can take a freaking vacation because you have partners that can run the business while you're gone. And that ain't a bad thing. Competition, looking for that competitive difference and the returns. Here's one thing. I'm going to skip around here just 2 seconds, bear with me. Here's one thing, I always tell Maureen Ford's here, I went to the Entrepreneur Academy. And we went, and it was the greatest experience because we went and we talked to real business leaders that have gone through this pain before. And I always say, and whenever I give a little speech here, I always talk about the lessons that I picked up from the Entrepreneur Academy. The first one was to build an engine. I remember, I think it was a guy from Bugle Boy or something, that said, hey, whenever you design a company, and if you freaking sell it, and you have to stay there for 10 years, you have failed. You have not built an engine, okay? Think about building the engine. The other major thing was stay focused. It is natural tendency and human nature that if you want to differentiate yourself, you're going to think of something that's different than none of the competitors are doing. And there might be an opportunity that will drain from your core competencies. You'll go try it, you'll fail, and you'll come back and get back to your core competencies. So the major message was to stay focused. The message was not to change strategy or try new things, but make sure whatever you do does not drain from your core competencies. And I think that was a great lesson. Matter of fact, that's something that I have to deal with all the time, especially in this fast and changing business that I'm in. The other big thing was building stepping stones. Don't get into something that you have no experience in. Okay? What you want to do is build from a foundation and to use that stepping stone. I go back to the story of, that's the only reason why they gave this guy $230 million in terms of venture capital. It's because we've had a stepping stone approach of what we've gotten into. Communicate with a vengeance. We're ex-military folks, so whoever's in the military, the decision matrix are key in terms of keeping you honest. Wait to hire the best. This has been a tricky one too. You want to know why? Because you're growing so fast. There's such an easy tendency to say, I need to fill the slot. But you've got to say, screw it, don't do it. Because the most painful thing in the world is to hire somebody and it not work out. Matter of fact, I've been through 2 CTOs. 2 of them I should have never hired Should have never hired them, okay? Actually, I've been through 3. I take that back. 3 of them, okay? And I should have waited. And because the pain of training, the pain of working, and even the pain to that person is very difficult. So wait to hire the best. The other big one is always assume it's your problem. This poor camera, folks, I love to walk around, Fred. That's the only problem.
It's okay, I delegated.
Did you delegate? Excellent. Your arm got tired.
Yeah.
Now, the other key thing really comes down to if the largest resource that you're lacking is people, to me the key is building a good culture. And building a good culture comes down to your value set. Okay? Culture is dictated by behavior. It's dictated by what processes you have, what strategies you have, what people you hire. It all dictates the culture. Well, what underlies that is your value set. As a matter of fact, here's our value set that we live by. The tough part is when you grow, you change people, you change processes, and you change strategies which put stress on these values. So the big thing is that change management and controlling the culture. But I wanted to plop up the old value set because I think it's very important. Customers king. That's why. All right. What did my father say? That's one, right? He used to sell skis in upstate New York. And one of my first jobs was selling skis. I was around 15. My father let me sell skis. I thought that was really cool. And he always taught me customers king. Well, you want to know what? Skis and technologies aren't that different. Because gosh darn it, customers king in my business too. And so it's a key lesson. Honesty and integrity. I'll never forget, I was in the Air Force and they had this honor code and all this other jazz. Remember I told you how we got JP Morgan's first chunk of their sites? Well, we had around 80% of our revenue coming from JP Morgan. And we had a failure on one of our computer bridges. And it was the first time I ever really had a truly ethical situation. Because in the Air Force, to tell you the truth, I really didn't have an opportunity. You really didn't have an opportunity to lie like that, right? Because I could have easily said it was the network's problem. I'll never forget this. We finally said, screw it. We called them up and said, our bridge went bad. This is how we're going to fix it, blah, blah, blah. They were a little hot at us, but at the end of the conversation, they said, you're the first one ever to tell us the truth. Around 2 weeks later, we got the rest of their business. And so it was just a great lesson in terms of being honest and having integrity. Because you want so much to project yourself bigger, and you don't want to screw up. But it will always come back to bite you if you lie or you cheat. And so it's an absolutely key value. The other one is to take care of your folks in terms of culture. We work against, I love competing against large companies. I always think of, does anybody here work for Quest or US West? Good, I can make fun of them now. US West used to have the worst customer satisfaction rating. Worst. And then I had friends that worked at Quest. You know what they did? They treated their people like crap. It didn't make sense to me. You want these people to be nice to your customers, but then you treat them bad. It's not that hard. Take care of your people, especially if you're in the customer service business. Very simple, right? And so that is a key value in our company. Challenge yourself. I always say, hey, challenge yourself to improve. This is one of the biggest motivators. A lot of people, we got stock options, we got all these grandeur, we're filed to go public and all these other stuff, and it might be an opportunity to make a lot of money. You know what motivates most of our folks? Is the challenge. The opportunity to go out and succeed or fail based off of their own initiative. And so I think that's an absolutely key value. And the last one is work hard but have fun. There's balance. If you work all the time, you will burn out. Okay, so our philosophy and our business kind of stinks. You want to know why? Guess what the best time to upgrade your systems are? Christmas, Thanksgiving, and New Year's. It's when you do all the work. And so what you got to do is make sure to take care of your folks in terms of sending them home. And that's very important. So with that, I think the key emphasis on that was to build the culture. Also, pain's not bad in building the culture. I think back at the old military, and I make a much better civilian than I do military, by the way. That's why the heck I got out. That's why it's very good for the country that I'm no longer a military person. But there was a few things, like boot camp. And I have to tell you the truth, I've got a lot of good buddies I still talk to that went through boot camp. Why do I still talk to these folks? Because we went through pain together, right? You go through pain together. And believe it or not, pain is a good culture builder. And so we have a few things, we have boot camp and a few other things that, not saying that we shock our people, hopefully we don't shock anybody, but it's painful. I'll tell you right now, we gave Bill around $7 million to go start a data center. And he showed up had to build his own team, had to deal with the construction folks, had to deal with me calling and saying, is the place open? And just go and do it. And so there's a lot of pain that himself and his team went through to initially bring up the data center. But believe it or not, that probably brought them a heck of a lot closer together. And so that's a very good culture builder. So with that, I'm going to leave it in terms of the major points that I wanted to make about my experiences, and then leave it open for questions. Anybody?
Come on, guys.
A lot of entrepreneurs that I've met in the Entrepreneurship Academy and in the school have never gone through MBA programs or the Entrepreneurship Academy. And being in there, I asked them how do they think a program like that would help. Apart from what you mentioned in your presentation, how do you think you would have been crippled as far as missing out on the Entrepreneurship Academy? Or
I'd say, yeah, of not going through those experiences. Number one, doing a business plan. Number two, understanding how a business truly is an ecosystem in terms of marketing affects sales, sales affects operations, operations affects accounting, and how all of those systems work together. So the business plan, the ecosystem, the other one that's key, got to understand financials. You know how they say there's no universals? Baloney. Every business has an income statement and a balance sheet. And if you don't have one, that business is going out of business. So I think that those are the key experiences. Yes?
You had a question on, you talked about growing and partnering.
Yes.
And one of the questions I have is when starting a company, when is it a good time? It's always a good time to partner, but sometimes it's you have to make a deciding choice of you want to grow it and you want to get into other parts of the industry. So
yeah.
When is it a good time to merge instead of partner, and why would you go with one versus another?
The best time to partner is when you don't have to. I hate to say it. When we first started out, and if you have no leverage, your partnerships are usually a win situation for that partner. So you've got to get some customers under your belt. You've got to add value somehow to that partnership. So that's the key thing. A lot of people think I'm going to grow because I partner, but if you have nothing that you can bring to the table, think about what you can bring to the table before you think about the partnership. That's the time to partner. Yes?
You had mentioned that one of the motivators is challenging individuals. How do you challenge them without breaking them, or give them a challenge worthy?
How do I challenge them without breaking them?
I mean, sometimes you can over-challenge individuals. Do you just set high standards?
Well, basically, what you try to do is set concrete metrics and allow them to operate within those bounds. And if there are signs that they're going outside of that bounds, offer help. For example, in terms of Bill's data center, he has metrics of revenue, profitability, and customer satisfaction that we measure. And if they're outside of what we planned those bounds to be, we say, hey Bill, you need any help? What's going on? And so the key is to make sure that you have a metric system set up such that you can understand where the bounds are so that you can help out before it's too late.
One last question.
Yes?
Yes, in terms of building cultures, I
Yeah.
noticed you have a slide on these are sets of core values that we have. What process do you go through within your organization to come up with those,
Yes.
those values?
Yeah, matter of fact, when we first started out the company, a lot of those, actually 3 of those core values came from our last company. And so what we wanted to do, first thing, we went through the whole thing. We did a mission statement, we did our core value set, and we published that. From a recurring standpoint, we have done cultural surveys to ask questions in terms of, hey, is the culture changing? Are there any value sets that are outside of those bounds? And I don't think we have anything official set up. We've done a survey like once so far. We're around 3 years old. So that's the big thing. So we started, we've asked for feedback. We'll probably do a recurring thing. Matter of fact, I do take that back. We have the automation team. We have a team within our company called the automation team. They work on special projects. There is a cultural project that they're working on right now from a recurring process standpoint that survey's part of. So.
Good. We're going to have to cut them off. I want to thank all you guys for being here. I want to make a couple of comments. First of all, Mr. John Daly, would you stand up? I think you just had one hell of a birthday present listening to your son, didn't you? Huh?
You got a fantastic mother. Make sure you tell her that when we go.
My birthday's coming up in a month. Let me tell you, as a prof, watching his former student in action, I just had one hell of a birthday present too. And the thing I want to say to you guys, I've said it the last time, I'll say it the next time, there is no reason why you guys aren't going to provide me with a series of speakers for the next 30 years to have one of my former students up here every month talking about how they made it, what they did, what they're all about, so you can teach the next generation. There's a lot of opportunity for all you guys. I want to know which one of you. By the way, I have threatened my dean, and I will threaten the AVP now. I got another 25 years of good teaching. I asked my dean if he'd stick around with me. He looked at me like I was crazy, but I'm serious. You guys, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, I expect some of you to be back here so I can get up and say, hey, this guy was in my class. Just look at what he's done. Listen to him. Learn from him. It's a proud moment for me to have Joel here, and I thank him kindly for being excellent. That's what I ask for my students, is excellent. This man is excellent. All of you can be absolutely successful. Go do it. See you later. Only got a couple of minutes. Joel, you got to get up here.
Our clubs are so simple. We're going to have so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rochelle, you get up here too. I've got. Hello. Hello. Atención, por favor. Papa's on. You got to get over here next to Joel. I only have 4 more minutes left on the video, so I want to shoot this real quick, okay? So I'm going to have to talk fast, and that's hard for me. But first of all, I got more junk for Joel to take home with him than you've ever seen. A whole bunch of our little picture things, and if you didn't get these, please take one. I've got some over in a bag over there. Eric can give you one. It has a wonderful picture of Joel and a wonderful picture of Joel's logo and a handsome dude picture there and a little blurb about him here and everything like that. So this will be a good
Coaster?
souvenir. Coaster. Good Lord. I also figured, hey, nobody's ever said anything good about him before in life, so I'd give him some of my flyers that I gave out to the speaker. It says hot for speaker, you know, all that sort of stuff. I figured Joel would kind of like having that, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, the guru, indeed, yeah. And let's see. Copy of the one I put on the speaker notices too, so you can have all that.
How we recycle.
Then we have, yes. Well, I accidentally printed an extra one, so I gave it to him, you know. So, actually, somebody stole my other board. So, we have, Joel is being named the Conrad Hilton Distinguished Entrepreneur tonight and receiving that award. So we have a number of little prizes for him, and the first one here is a nice little thing he can put on his wall. The Conrad Hilton Distinguished Entrepreneur Award presented to Joel Daly for outstanding achievement as an entrepreneurial superstar and creator of the future. And that's what our man is. Now, so you don't think I'm cheap and just give you something in paper, he also gets a beautiful little plaque that says the Hilton Distinguished Entrepreneur Award. Okay, now this will hang on the wall. The other one will hang in the bathroom. This one will hang in the wall in his living room, right? Yeah, look at the cameras there.
Right here.
Okay.
1, 2,
Okay.
3. Beautiful.
It didn't
no,
flash.
wasn't.
Try it again.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
That's
Good
a
show.
good one. Oh,
Good.
beautiful.
Okay, we're not through yet. Joel also gets one of our entrepreneur dream boxes where entrepreneurs put their little mementos of success stories they've had. And you store in here, if you know his first $1 million check, you know he can take a picture of it and put it in here. His first $1 billion he deposits in the bank, he can put the deposit slip in here, things like that, you know. Okay, so,
Thank you so
and
much.
I'll tell you a little secret, I'll be honest with you. I had forgotten, Joel already got one of these from me, and I forgot, I made a new one, so now he's got one he's going to put in the living room and one in the bathroom too. So.
I got 2 of them.
Yeah, okay. Finally, some of you guys know I'm a father man, and now a grandfather man, and one of the nicest things I find from Joel when I talk to him is what he's most proud of, his kids. So, I got to start having speakers. I ain't got so damn many kids because this is expensive. So for each of your babies, including the one that isn't born yet, we have a teddy bear. I got 3 of them in here, one for each of the twins, and one for the one that ain't quite there yet.
Good deal.
Okay, yeah. When's it due?
April.
April, okay, see? So here you go.
Excellent, excellent.
There, good. Wait a minute, we'll get a picture of them with all of them
Oh,
here.
okay.
There you go, there's your loot, baby.
Oh, that's good.
So that's good.
All right,
yeah.
I'm coming right up on you for this one.
Good.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so
Fair
much.
enough, we'll
That
put
is
them
a
back in the
good
bag.
shot. You're right. And we need one of the whole group.
Huh?
This is
Okay,
the whole group.
okay, let me take all this away then.
No, that's great because the fiscal one's for the Vistas one.
Huh?
Yeah, you have
What?
the one for Vistas.
What?
The one that says
You want them to hold
Alliance.
up the plaque?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah, or
good.
teddy bear or something. Hold up something.
There you go.
There's a little bear envy
Whoa.
over there. Bear envy. Okay,
Good. Rochelle, you in here?
I am. Excellent. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, ma'am.
Got it. Wonderful picture.
Good,
Awesome.
okay.
Just making you tell right away. That's great. We are
All right.
very proud of you.
Now,
Great.
all you young people in this audience, which the hell's the next one of them to have up here that I'm going to give these to you? I am challenging you.
Oh, I don't care. There you go, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I was honored.
Let's see if we ran out.
You should already
Oh, I got 1 minute left. Can you believe it? It's beautiful. Woo-hoo.